Hey everybody, what's going on? Dace here, and today we are going to be taking a look at my Spirit mode on hard difficulty, clear of Danmaku Unlimited 3. Okay, so here's the thing. What I wanted to do specifically for this run was completely ignore grazing for score to then hit the extends. So the first one is at 250 million, and the next one I think is 750 million, which SPM, friend of mine, informed me of. This whole time I thought there were just no extends in the game, so it was pretty wild to discover that the game does have some built in, which makes a lot more sense. But I just felt like doing it without getting any extra lives. So that's how this run went. So anyway, yeah, we're just going to get right into things. I'm probably going to share a bunch of different little bits and pieces about the experience. This took, because I was ignoring going for the extra lives, this certainly took longer than it would have. I did one test run after clearing the game today, and I hit both extends by like stage 5. So like the survivability that you gain from those is just over the top. Like things are just going to be that much simpler when you jump in and go for the lives. But it was pretty crazy not having access to those, not granting myself access to those, because you just got to play that much better. You really need to just know, what to expect and how to deal with all that kind of stuff. And you're still going to like fumble here and there, of course. There's some silly slip-ups and whatnot and all that. But for the most part, like, it's just a blast of a game. I'm so pumped to have crushed this one. And yeah, I specifically went with the non-TLB option because I want to at least just bang this out and then reevaluate like whether I switch my approach for tackling the TLB at the end or whatever. So this time it's just without the TLB. But so yeah, anyway. One thing I really do enjoy about this game is just how it really teaches you to just keep your cool. Like jumping into an attack like that, the one we just finished, like you really got to exercise just tapping and just trusting in your awareness of what's going on and how the attack works and all that. It's just pretty wild stuff that the game throws at you. And this is only the first boss. Like things ramp up crazy later on. But for the most part, I think like I'll point out a number of the very challenging things that would more or less stop my run dead in its tracks, or which would just have me set up for a very like poor situation going into the final level or whatever the case is. So I'll point that stuff out. But for the most part, the stage portions themselves are super easy. It's just the boss fights and the phases that the bosses have, which you really got to put the time and energy into figuring out, because you can just take one hit after another, and even though your bombs do detonate automatically for you, like you can just drop so quickly. It's just crazy. So you really got to be careful in this game. I haven't really decided if I'm going to do like a guide video for like people who are completely new to this game and just these games in general, or if I'm going to do something a little more focused on hard mode specifically, within Spirit mode that is, because I feel like just a breakdown, like slow motion breakdown of the boss phases and stuff like that would probably be super helpful for a lot of people, but we'll see what happens. I'm not sure yet. I haven't decided, but yeah, anyway, so for the most part, every level is a blast. It's so much fun just learning the flow, how to stay on top of everything, because I'm ignoring score. The whole thing, the whole time, it's just speed kill everything. There's no like, sure, I'm grazing here and there sometimes and collecting spirit things to fill up my trance gauge. Interestingly enough, I think it was like almost a week ago I discovered that, or rediscovered that grazing also charges, not just picking up the little blue spirit things, but also grazing charges your trance meter much, much faster. There's no, like I probably knew that in the past, but I had forgotten it, so I wasn't using that to my advantage. So a number of days ago when I realized that again, that started to make a big difference during certain sections where you can kind of just capitalize on certain spots and then have another hyper ready to go off or another trance. So that is super helpful. So for the most part, it's, like I more or less got my consistency to a point where I would no bomb, no miss the first 3 stages. And then things would sometimes go sour in stage 4, during the boss, that is. But then that gradually, there were a few phases specifically where, like I said earlier, like it would just ruin everything. But those gradually got cleaned up a little more the more I paid attention, just made observations, saw what I could do where and when and that kind of stuff. That made a huge difference. And then there was a section in stage 5, which I'll point out when we get there, which for as long as I've ever played this game, that was one part that was just always brutal. But I just started to experiment more with what I said earlier, just tap dodging and trusting, and just going at a very, very slow pace from one side to the other, and just experimenting with that kind of stuff, staying on top of enemies, canceling out, not panicking and like flying out of the way, but just trusting that, okay, you're gonna soak up some little spirit things, and you're not just going to be having bullets all over the place. And that made a huge difference too. So it was great to see progress when I finally started cracking how to do certain parts. It just made everything great. I think the first, it was just like a couple days ago when I no bomb, no miss stage 5 for the first time, not including the final boss. I'm just talking about the stage part itself. So yeah, when I figured that out, that was just like very empowering, because you can just feel the potential. You just know that there's just so much more you can be doing. And if you can just push further into the run before you start taking hits and all this kind of stuff, then you just feel that much more equipped to, polish it off sooner than later. Some of these attacks are just brilliant. I had a few, actually no, I had a couple. There was one really close run the day before I recorded this one, and then I think the run just before this one were both fairly close. But this was the one that did it. Just, tuck myself into the side like that. I love this stage. All the stages, this whole game is just incredible to me. A prime example of a game you can just grow into and not out of. It offers just such an immense degree of learning. Excuse me. And I think there might be a few sections that I kind of did sloppily. For whatever reason, I got sidetracked thinking about something, and then I just missed my cue to be somewhere else on screen or whatever. But for the most part, it pans out. So if you're new to this game and you're watching this, definitely don't think that you're supposed to hold your trance in reserve the whole time. I think normally I don't trigger it until stage 2 during the boss fight. That's when I use it first. But if you want to be scoring, obviously you're going to be using it a lot more. And there may be other times where you just want to use it. But I just, like I said at the very start, I had a very different approach to how I wanted to do this. But obviously when you get deeper into the levels, then that's when you want to be, yeah, firing it off instead of taking chances. Oh man, some of these, I'm sure there is a better way, because like most of the time during phases like this, I'm not even lined up with the boss. But that's just how I've more or less always done it, regardless of what difficulty. And I'm sure there are better ways to go about it, but yeah. This is a phase that can trip me up sometimes. I like having a trance ready, but if I don't, then it's, yeah, I'm either taking a hit or I'm using a bomb, or the bomb is using itself rather. But for the most part, sections like this are easy. I pretty much always hyper there just to finish off that last little bit. And yeah, it was maybe, I'm not sure, almost a week ago when I pieced a nice little flow for this section, which you're going to see me do here. Just waiting for those 3 to pass. This actually didn't go as planned. It was pretty risky. But for the most part, this is how I always approach it. I just wait for these things to pass and then I go back. But there were a few sections where I probably could have done things a little more smoothly. But yeah, if you are playing and you are scoring to get the extends, it's crazy because like I don't really have too much experience scoring for the extends, to be honest, but I did a test run, and by the end of the first stage I had like 104 million, so not quite halfway to the, well, close enough to halfway to the first extend, but that gives you a rough idea of how early you will have that extra life if you just need that little bit extra to push through the game. And if you're soaking up even more score throughout the later stages, then you will most likely hit the second one. So clearing this should be no problem. So I use the trance proactively at that moment every single run, just so that I can avoid the attack that's coming up, which is the shotgun spray. I don't, yeah. It's one that always trips me up. It's sometimes easy to read, and then other times it's in your face and you just take a hit. So I just figure, you know what, be proactive to ensure I never take a hit there, because there's no point. Oh, this game is so good. Man, I remember in my earliest days with DU3, like this part with all the worms, all the snake enemies, it was just crazy. Oh, but I just love how thick some of these clouds of blue are. When you just take out like huge groups of enemies and you just soak it all up. Half the time I don't even, like, I'm soaking it up not because I need it, like the trance gauge is already full, I just do it because it's so satisfying, like flying right into a thick cluster. I always prioritize the big guys that come flying in from the side, because yeah, if you don't stay on top of them, then things get really messy super fast. And I could be doing a lot more in terms of killing enemies here, but I'm just more or less playing it safe. So this attack is so easy, like nothing's going on here that's a threat. But it's this one that would often just completely demolish my runs. And then when I did medium difficulty like 2 weeks ago, that's when I started figuring out how to actually approach this. And then, of course, being in hard mode, you've got to be that much more smart about it because it's just way more complex. But that's when it just finally clicked what to do, how to do it, and gaining consistency for that phase was incredible for me. It was just so helpful. That's one phase that can, actually no, I think it's the one coming up after this one. I'm not sure. We'll see. But this is one that I have down. I've always been pretty decent with this attack. There's the odd time, sure, that I'll like take a hit, but for the most part, I never take hits during this one. But you still got to be really, really careful. It keeps you moving constantly. But it's pretty simple stuff. Oh, I did take a hit there. But I'm not concerned. Yeah, this is the attack. This one still trips me up sometimes. I don't necessarily have this one fully figured out to my liking, but it went down quick enough. This is another phase that just sometimes demolishes me. Like 4 bombs, sometimes all my lives, like, and then I go into the last stage with nothing. But this time I experimented with slightly higher positions when I could afford it, and like behind the plates, I mean, and just, yeah, it's one of those things. Sometimes it goes really well and other times it would just go brutal, but I did a few different things this time to experiment, and it just panned out really well. So I wasn't concerned because I knew, okay, even though I took a hit or used a bomb automatically, I'm just going to get it back here. So I think this was one of the first times ever going into stage 5 with, the first and only actually, probably, now that I think of it, the only time going in with full bombs, full lives, and that said to me, okay, like, I know I can do this stage flawlessly, so we can maybe do it this time. We can most likely just blast our way through it. So this is another, like, every stage is so fun, but I just love the progression of the difficulty with all the stages, and this one is just over the top wicked. Like, it does not get better than this. Now there is a section I'll point out later where I'm not sure what I was thinking about or what was going on, but I did get sidetracked and I totally blanked on something that I've practiced plenty of times and never mess up, and I take a hit, and then I think it took another hit like right before the boss, but it's just one of those things where like things like that are still gonna happen even if you know what you're doing and have a solid route. Like, it's just, that's how it's gonna go sometimes. But that's part of why I'm excited to do a guide for this, because yeah, I just think it would help people make sense, because I remember certain sections of this, even on medium difficulty, feeling so difficult in my earlier days, and now it's a breeze, honestly. And I mean that as a form of encouragement, because it can be very intimidating seeing all this stuff just flying all over the place and not being sure the best place to be or how to approach a certain section. But sometimes it just takes seeing the visuals with an explanation to kind of feel that much more prepared. And this is another one. This boss would sometimes really trip me up. But then one day I just said, okay, you know what? I wonder what happens if I just tap dodge from one side to the other. And then I cleared that first thing. And for me, it was like, okay, that's the method to use every time. And it works like a charm. The only thing I got to watch out for is the attack we just finished before that last attack, where those those white and purple balls are crisscrossing. That can sometimes trip me up. But I just love, oh yeah, I think this is the part, yeah. For whatever reason, I forgot to just pay attention and just clear that whole cloud of dudes that came from the right side. So, I was not impressed with that because it's, like I said, something that I know and never mess up. But whatever. So this is one section that has always been troublesome, but like a lot of the other things, it just kind of clicked at one point, bringing it back to the idea of just staying on top of certain specific enemies and just trusting in a slow, gradual pace to the side. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just, like, all these aimed shots, even though it looks like, oh, these giant rings flying at me, like, it's all aimed stuff. And so I'm just gradually, like, I'm like nothing. I'm just not taking chances. I'm just trusting. And if you didn't have a trance, you could be soaking up some of this stuff, or the sides of the rings when they kind of go flat, and then you can just be charging your trance too. But it's wild because, like, you would not believe how sloppy this section would be for me in the past, and then just a simple change of approach. And I did that because I felt like, okay, I'm almost cornered here. I don't want to take a chance. Now, ideally, I'm not in this kind of situation. I took another hit there because I didn't have the big guy taken out yet, and I just was not, paying attention to what needed to be done. But I'm still feeling confident at this point going into this fight. I have my gauge ready, so yeah, oh man, this run was such a blast. It's crazy how much of this game is about tiny movements. And this was another fun one to figure out. This used to always mess me up. And then just jumping into it here and there in, like, the training mode or whatever, just to kind of make sense of it. Like, I took a hit there. Most of the time I don't, but it's just amazing how when you just focus your attention on something specific, you can just start making sense of it. This one's kind of chaotic at times, but for the most part it's pretty simple. This one, oh man, this one is where I get destroyed sometimes. But I think this time around it went really, really well. I have been coming up with a new method where I don't, like, in the past anyway, I would, like, circle around the center thing as much as possible. I think I'm taking a hit there, yeah. Whereas this time I just kind of, like, stay on one side and just nudge myself down once I'm in the circle area. And if you have ever played this game, you'll know this pattern is pretty intense at times, because it gets closer and closer to you. You really got to just watch. It's like you want to stay in the middle where it's safest, but you also want to be moving away from everything. So it kind of, like, psychologically, you want to be moving backwards into the wall of death that's all around you. This is another fairly easy one, but you still got to watch and make sure you don't get caught by the lasers. Oh, another hit. But if you're here, then that's pretty simple stuff. Oh. But like you're seeing, it's so easy to just take hits. Like, there's so much happening all at once. You sometimes you're just going and you're not thinking too much. You're just going. And this went really well. This is another one. I haven't actually practiced this too much, to be honest. And I don't have much experience because in runs I don't often, or the runs leading up to this anyway, I wouldn't necessarily always make it to that. So very limited experience, but somehow I was dodging that. I would like to put more time into sorting that out, because I don't think it's actually as intimidating as it looks and feels. It's just one of those things that just takes observation and figuring out. So anyway, there you have it. Hard difficulty on spirit mode. What a blast of a game. I cannot get over this game. I love the fact that this is one I've had for like my second, like when I got into the genre in 2018. This was the second game I got, and it's one I can see myself playing for the rest of time. It's just so good. Anyway, yeah, just so good. Anyway, I think I'll leave it off there. Let this roll. For those who want to listen to the music, I can turn that up a little bit. But yeah, have a solid day. Thank you so much for being here, for checking this out. Let me know what you think in the comments, and what you would like to see in terms of maybe like a guide or a boss breakdown or whatever the case is. But I'm trusting you all enjoyed this, and we'll chat soon. See ya.